Hi Equals, it's Kim, and welcome to Kim Perfect TV, where we talk about LGBT issues. And today I'm doing the second of a series on continuums in sexual orientation, gender identity, and gender expression. And I just last week did the sexual orientation version of this, so I will put the little card up here for you if you would like to go back and see that one. Today we're going to talk about gender identity. So here's my continuum line, the same one from last week, and I am kind of prescribing people that I don't really think exist, who is 100% female and one who is 100% male. All right, so this is in their body, in their brain. They have whatever the 100% male body is and whatever the 100% female body is. As I mentioned, I don't think these people actually exist. But then the rest of us, because we're all different and we're all, our bodies are all a little different. Think about it, folks. If you're old enough to remember those days when we had locker rooms and where you had to shower communally and everybody got to see everybody else's body. There was a lot of comparing going on. Who's is bigger? Who's is smaller? Who's got different shaped stuff? Who's got bigger boobs? Who's got smaller boobs? Whose penis is bigger? Whose penis is smaller? All of that kind of stuff. Remember the whole thing about size matters? Okay, we know that there is nothing standard about the 100% female and the 100% male. If we did, then we'd all know what that perfect body we were trying to get was. And for all of us, even when we're thinking about a perfect body, it's different. We all think about it being differently. Okay, so in gender identity, there are two important pieces. One is genitalia and what they say, and the other is what's happening in the kind of primitive brain back here. Right. So children, babies, are born, and the doctor takes kind of a cursory look between their legs when they're born and says, oh, it's a girl, or oh, it's a boy, or they're looking at ultrasound or whatever. But anyway, the doctor decides, because the medical establishment, believe it or not, has determined that if body parts are bigger than a certain size, then you're a boy, and if they're smaller than a certain size, then well, you're a girl. And and then there are children who don't fit either of those, and we call them intersex, and those babies happen at the same rate approximately as redheaded children are born. This should not surprise us. There is great diversity in creation, and to think that there wouldn't be some people who have some combination of male body parts and female body parts really shouldn't surprise us. People are known as intersex. Now, they may have all female external genitalia but have some male internal genitalia, or their chromosomes could not be clear, just X and Y or X and X. There could be some other combination. They could have high levels of testosterone, low levels of testosterone, high levels of estrogen, low levels of estrogen. We wouldn't have to test people's blood for testosterone and estrogen levels for various medical situations that are arising if there wasn't great diversity in all of those things. All right, so there really is no all 100% female and 100% male. We all list somewhere in here. All right, and so some people, most people are probably floating around here or here. This is the transgender side. Right? And trans literally means across, so across genders. Generally, transgender people are people who have their genitalia would indicate male or female, but their brain, what's going on back here, says the opposite. That may be the end of the situation for the person. They are simply aware that that disconnect exists. For some people, it becomes a problem. And there's a name for that. It's called gender dysphoria. And for folks like that, they may want to, because of the gender dysphoria, that disconnect is so severe that they need to do something about it. And So those transgender people may choose a form of transition. And there's all kinds of love, that could be an entire spectrum all unto itself, or a continuum all unto itself. So some of those people may socially transition. They may pick a name that works better for them. They may ask you, us, the rest of society, to refer to them by a different pronoun. So if they've been called she most of their life and now they're transitioning, they may ask us to call them he. Or reverse, they were born and everybody just started calling this baby he, but now this person, and this actually can happen as early as 3 or 4 years old, because that's kind of when gender becomes established. Think about your own kids. My daughter, I used to dress her very androgynously, and she got to 3 years old and insisted on dressing herself, and all of it had to be like girly stuff. Anyway, she was very clear on, that she understood her gender identity, and she understood society's expectation for how she should express that gender identity. And so she, wanted to wear girly stuff. And she has the right to do that. Anyway, that was like 3 or 4 years old. Okay, so they may have been assigned female at birth and called she, but now they get to between 3 and could be anywhere. I've known people as late as 50, 60, 70 who finally get all of this figured out. So they may ask, have a different name. They may have ask you to call them by the other pronoun. So if they were he, they might ask for she. If they were she, they might ask for he. Never both. That's considered a slur to say, well, he, she, or it. No. Just no. If somebody says, call me she, do it. It doesn't hurt you. If somebody asks you to call them she, or to call them, Christine instead of Christopher, what does it hurt you to do it? Might you mess it up? Sure, but you try, right? You correct yourself, you go on. All right, so transgender folks. Cisgender folks are people whose genitalia and their brain all match up. These are the lucky folks because they, get to 3 or 4 years old and they determine, they get a concept of gender and how society expects them to express that gender, and it all matches together, and they just kind of, nursery school and kindergarten are a breeze. Okay. Anyway, so these folks are cisgender, same. Their brain and their body say the same thing. All right. We would consider cisgender folks to be the dominant or privileged end of this spectrum because there's just more of them. Right, and it's what society expects to happen. These folks, they get to the 3 or 4 years old and they don't know what to do, and they're kids to start with, and if they don't have supportive parents, they may go into the closet, so to speak, or they hide who they are in order to meet their parents and society's expectations. So this could go on for a very, very long time. All right, now these folks, the cisgender folks, they're fine. They can move through life as cisgender without having to worry about it much. Transgender folks, again, if they are experience dysphoria, all right, which is kind of a medical term for it, but there's a real disconnect for them, and it makes kind of life uncomfortable and hard to live. That may manifest in a lot of ways. Then they may decide they want to transition. And so they may socially transition. And remember, all of this is going to be different for every person. But social transition could include changing your name. It could include asking people to use a different pronoun. It could include dressing differently. But it may never include anything medical, right? Or they might physically transition somehow. It might just be hormones. Look up the amazing things that testosterone do to a body, or estrogen does to a body, if you want to see that. So, and that may be all a person does. And they may be able to pass just with that, just with hormone and the hormone replacement by society, and they may not. All right? Some folks have the money, the resources, the health, and the desire to go even further. And they may medically transition with surgeries. One of those might be laser to remove the beard. One of those may be surgery to soften the face. One of those may be surgery to remove breast tissue. Testosterone won't take them away. Although estrogen gives them to us, testosterone does not take them away. And then it may involve sexual reproduction genitalia as well. There might be a hysterectomy involved. There's all kinds of options. Again, a whole continuum of what that medical intervention might look like. Okay. Then, so we've talked about transgender people, we've talked about cisgender people, but look at all that space in the middle. These are folks who may identify as gender non-binary, gender neutral, gender fluid, because they may feel more over here one day and more over here another day. And so they kind of consider themselves gender fluid. They kind of move back and forth here. Some people may be very sure that it's equally neither. All of that is very possible. If we think about the grand diversity of humanity, and we apply that diversity equally to all parts of a person, assume that there's some sort of binary in genitalia or a binary in maleness or femaleness. Anyway, hopefully my little chart here, my continuum, kind of helps you understand where people float on here. Gender identity is a little bit actually easier to understand than sexual orientation, and these folks are somewhat less likely to be invisible, although mostly because of their gender expression. We'll talk about that next week. And bisexual people are, for example, here's the female side, and I am very female, right? But I probably identify more over here. I'm not into long hair. I don't wear dresses much. Every now and then I do. But my body is curvy. It doesn't look like a boy's. But interestingly, when I pass a mirror, I'm often surprised by all that curviness, because kind of the way my brain sees myself is much more masculine. So that's why I put myself right over here. Am I going to do anything about that? No, it doesn't feel like it's something. I don't have dysphoria, all right? So I don't feel like there's something I need to do. I just know that I'm not that 100% female person, and I'm not that much masculine. I'm just sitting around in here, and I'm just fine right there. Anyway, folks, if you like this video, give me a thumbs up, hit the red subscribe button, hit the bell to get notified every time I put up a new video, and join me next week when we'll talk about gender expression. Bye, equals.